You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast for our last India v England Test match wrap-up show. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max Roy Brown. How are you doing, Max? Crushing defeat. Are you crushed?
Yeah. Completely and utterly crushed. I held out so much hope for England to be turning this game around, and I'm so disappointed that they failed to do so.
And Ross, we've got you back on the podcast. We had to delay the whole show by 40 minutes, 15 minutes or something, so you could go and buy some wood glue. Have you bought the wood glue? And are you going to use it to stick your shattered ego back together?
Yes, because my ego is completely wrapped up in the England team, and that's one of my main character flaws. I did get my wood sealant, which is a highlight of my Saturday because the cricket was abject. I think it's fair to say, but as is highlighted in the chat by Backall, who can blame them for wanting to pack their bags and get home early?
Nobody, to be honest. I mean, like, we did see it coming a little bit, Max and I. Our predictions not been bad on a day-to-day basis over this series. We'll get to later in the show our predictions for the series, which, less successful, I think, is what I would say. What I would say for them. On the podcast today, we're gonna wrap up the cricket that happened. Another England collapse, some Ashwin magic, and a 4-1 series win for India. We'll talk a little bit about the series as a whole. We've got Anderson getting 700 wickets. Maybe a little bit about the future, and as I said, we'll be revisiting our predictions. So a lot to get through. Before we get to all of that, a reminder to subscribe to the Cricket Podcast. We had another good day of subscriptions yesterday, and we want to finish the series on a high note. Let's see if we can bag another ton before we head into the IPL. It is going to be a pretty packed few months for us coming up with the IPL, then the Cricket World Cup or T20 World Cup, and then the English summer. So plenty to stick about for. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. And if you're on an audio platform, leave us a review as well. That's a big help. You'll be a big supporter of the podcast. And just tell your mates in general. Send a WhatsApp clip, or don't even clip. Just send the whole video, or Spotify.
Even better, we send some merchandise.
Yeah, buy some merchandise. Send them a T-shirt. Why have you bought me a T-shirt for a podcast I don't listen to? It's like, you'll see. You'll see. Max, can you quickly summarise the rather quick demise of the England cricket team today?
Of course. So, yeah, England very far behind. So the question was really all about pride. Would England be able to stay the course and go a full 10 rounds against the heavyweight champion of the world in India, or would they be finding themselves flat on the canvas before you can do a short eulogy about James Anderson getting 700 wickets? And aside from Joe Root, who did actually stay the distance and put in an admirable effort, the rest of England's batters did perform like they had been repeatedly punched in the face by Anthony Joshua overnight, and completely subsided to Ravi Ashwin and everything else that came at them. It was a sorry display. Didn't even make it to 200. All out, innings defeat. And like I said, Joe Root aside, and Johnny Bairstow, who did smash a 6 over Everest, I think, as far as I can tell, off Ravi Ashwin. Yeah, pretty bad, really. A 5 for Ashwin to mark his 100th test as well. So very nice for him. And yeah, I mean, all in all, a very professional display from India, and a very on the plane display from England.
It was very on the plane. We've had a super chat in early, so I'll read that out. Ravine says at last it was more about England batting skills. So let's start with England's batting, Ross, because it wasn't very good, was it?
It was as one-dimensional as we've kind of seen it, other than Joe Root, who's obviously the best player. It was unfortunate to see Zach Crawley, who is the best batsman in the world, fall early. And just some of the wickets were, as you say, Max, they'd already put their ticket. They were already on it. Their golf clubs were in the hold, and they were getting that private jet back to Abu Dhabi, where they no doubt will play some more golf and enjoy themselves a little bit more. I think overall, you saw just a tired England. They were completely outplayed. And when you come out against Ashwin, Kuldeep, Jadeja, Bumrah, it is it's a pretty difficult task, but on this occasion it was a meek kind of performance. But it was nice to see Joe Root score some runs. Kind of, it felt like old England, didn't it? Like under Chris Silverwood. It was like everyone else doesn't hit any runs whatsoever. Maybe an odd 30 here or there, and Joe Root trying to be the big daddy in the room, trying to keep it all together. And it was the Stokes. The end of the Stokes innings was pretty sad. I kind of thought.
End of the Stokes innings. What do you mean an end of the Stokes innings?
Just in terms of like his performance across the whole of the series has just been utterly abject. And I think when we come on to our predictions later, Dan called that Stokes would be a flop, but surely he didn't predict how much of a flop. He's been a floppy disc in he's been that bad.
Careful.
He did bowl of a good ball.
That is that one good. And people going, this is it. People going, it was ball of the series. It just like, mate, he's been out to better balls in the series from Bumrah.
Max, do you want to build on anything Ross has said there from the England batting perspective? It was tired, wasn't it? It looked like a team that knew they were beaten and knew they could get an early flight.
It was a mentally broken batting display, wasn't it? Like there's a lot been made about England's approach, BAZBALL throwing it away, playing stupid shots, but there's you can look at it and say that's a stupid shot, but also if you take a step back, think about what they're trying to achieve. And on this occasion, I could not see what anyone was trying to achieve. Like Zach Crawley just fell into a trap that was so blatantly put there for him. Again, like Johnny Bairstow did a week or so ago when he just walked straight into a mousetrap. Zach Crawley did exactly the same thing. Ben Duckett just ran off. I don't know.
That was so village.
That was incredible. That was absolutely incredible.
It looked like someone who'd got picked because they're good at hockey, and then literally they got chucked into the team.
Yeah. Oh wait, I can't play this hockey shot. I don't know what to do anymore. It was that, and then Ollie Pope. That was kind of Ollie Pope of 2021, wasn't it? That it was like skittish. I don't know what to do. Oh, I'm just gonna have a waft at this one. Oh no, it's gone wrong. It was kind of just. I think the damage had been done by Kuldeep in the first place, and being so under the pump, England didn't have the resilience or belief. I think BAZBALL couldn't even give them the belief that there was something to play for here, and you could kind of see that in the way they approached it, apart from Joe Root, really. So, it's a shame as well to end it this way because of the competitive nature of the series. I think it's a shame that the trajectory has been this ending and this sort of meek submission to India.
Well, Max, the BAZBALL incarnate is obviously Ben Stokes. How many runs do you reckon he got in the series?
120.
Okay, it's not that bad.
195.
Yeah, it's 199. Will McPherson tweeted this morning. He averaged 7.6 in their second innings and scored 7 scores under 15. Not a good return for the man, the myth, the legend, and the clutch hero, Ben Stokes.
I think a lot of this is really just to do with India being quite good at bowling, though. If I'm honest.
That doesn't fit the narrative, mate. That doesn't fit the narrative. If you go to Talk Sport, if you go to Sky Sports, it's all about England being bad. It's nothing to do with India just being.
You have to remember,
better.
You have to remember that England invented cricket, and therefore, if anyone beats England at cricket, it's England's own fault for not being good enough, and nothing to do with the opposition.
Yeah,
you must remember that, right?
In the podcast Discord, which you can join if you sign up to become a Patreon, patreon.com/the cricket pod, little plug for that. Somebody posed the question of would India's batters plus England's bowlers be England's batters plus India's bowlers? And I think England, if you take England's batters and put them with India's bowlers and play the reverse, I think England's batters win. I think this is really just about the absolute chasm of a skill gap between Kuldeep Yadav, Ashwin, Jadeja, and Bumrah, and the guys rolling out for England. I mean, none of them really are even that close. I mean, we talked quite a lot about Bashir yesterday, didn't we, Max? And he ends up
Mm.
with 5 for 170 or something like that. And people are saying, like, yeah, he
Well,
played
if you
really
take
well.
off all the runs that someone scored against him at part of his innings, then they're good figures. That's what people are saying. It's like, yeah, you just make up a new metric that's half the runs. They don't matter.
Yeah, that was basically it. Like, if you take the really good bits he did and ignore the really bad bits that he did, then he's really
Then he's
good.
quality.
Whereas India, it's only, these bowlers they're only doing really good things, basically, and that's ultimately the difference here is that England's batters. And they have played well over the last 2 years. This isn't like a car crash lineup. There's no reason after this series to say we need to get rid of 3 of these guys. Like they aren't test quality. Like pretty much everybody in this team would be a reasonable pick for the first test in the summer. Even Bairstow probably. Even Bairstow. Even Stokes with 199 runs in 10 innings. It's still logical for England to pick him in their next test match. But put them up against this bowling attack in these conditions, and they're cannon fodder like anyone else would be. And that's, if we're looking at, it was a meek way for the series to end, and it has been a lot more competitive. But if you are looking for the series in a microcosm, you kind of get it in the last 2 days. India's batters not struggling that much against some fairly innocuous spin bowling, and England's batters, trying their best, having limited success in parts. I mean, like Joe Root, 84. That's a good innings against this attack. That's a really good innings. Even Bairstow, he hit a big 6. That's nice. That's good for Bairstow. But the unrelenting pressure just means that you're kind of screwed. You need something miraculous to come off, or you need like 4 Joe Roots, and that's not an option, is it? Like,
well, I think it's also good, mate, is that we're not sitting here talking about the pitches. Like all of the games were played on really competitive decks that actually have it in. So there's no normal bit where England only lost because of the pitches and all this kind of stuff. They just got thoroughly outplayed. And yeah, at the end of the day, winning 1 test match is probably a good thing. Going to India, they had the opportunity to win 2 or 3, didn't they? There were different parts, and I thought it was a little bit nip and tuck in certain aspects, but overall, the quality of Ravi Ashwin does come true.
That's it. I mean, like against like basically what you said, Ross. England could have won 2 tests in this match, arguably in this series. Arguably, they had a chance in a 3rd test, but India are just very, very good, and so you need
and that's okay. That literally is okay. The people whose egos are completely wrapped in the England team maybe need to reevaluate just slightly, but it's okay to be beaten by kind of a better team. And I think some of the bits around it has been, imagine if Virat Kohli was there. Like, imagine what would have happened. But I still probably think it was probably 4-1, really.
Yeah,
like in the grand scheme of things.
Unless Kohli was going to get Ollie Pope out in that first test, then it was going to be 4-1.
Well, he might have been building at point instead of Akshar. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. Max, there was another big thing that happened. We had Ashwin. He was good. He's a legend. Another GOAT, the English GOAT, Jimmy Anderson, finally gets to 700 wickets. We've been waiting for this for a year now. Have you got some nice things to say about Jim?
Yeah, Jimmy Anderson, really good at cricket. And he's been really good at cricket, lads, for 21 years.
Well, it's probably a little bit longer than that. I reckon he's probably been really good at cricket. Actually,
he's been playing Test cricket for England. He's been playing Test cricket for England for more than half of his life.
No, I'm back. So I want to come back to this. He's only been good at cricket for 20 years because actually before that, rubbish.
Yeah, all right, fine. He was probably really good at cricket when he was 16 as well. Yeah,
inadvertently just broke into the Test match team because he was rubbish, and then all of a sudden he was quite good.
Thank you, Ross. That's me done, Jack. That's my piece. Over.
Is that it?
No,
is that it?
It's not. So. 21 years, 2003 made his debut, and his peak form has been probably the last 10 years. Like he's averaged below 30 in between 2014 and 2022. He averaged below 30, below 25 in almost every year. There was like 1 year where he averaged 30.2. Aside from that, it's been comfortably below 25 with the ball. It went up a bit last year. We had a dodgy Ashes, but it's incredible that since the age of 31, we've seen this man have just a renaissance. He was already England's premier swing bowler, seam bowler. You're thinking about who's going to replace him, and then another 10 years from the age of 31. For a fast bowler with all the pressures on the body that go along with bowling seam, it's absolutely incredible that he is still as fit as he is and as effective as he is and has been for the last 10 years. It's stunning, and people can you could try and take things away from him. It's like, well, he's only got 700 wickets because he's played 187 tests. He's played 187 tests as a seam bowler. That is an incredible amount of cricket for someone to sustain. And you have to give him so much credit for the way he's been able to continue at that level and keep his body in the condition he has to be able to do that. It's a phenomenal achievement. No one's going to get close to it. And as a seam bowler, obviously 709, that's the next target. You can probably polish that one off towards the end of this year as well. And it's England probably aren't going to see the likes of Jimmy Anderson again, and we'll need to applaud him and bow down to him while we get the opportunity. And it's really nice that he's got his frosted tips back as well. Really nice symmetry to the start and end of the career.
Yeah. Well said, Matt.
Which I assume is why Ross has got his sunglasses on. He's just got a picture of James Anderson up to admire, and the hair has shocked him.
Cool. All right, we're going to take a break. Then we're going to come back and talk about BAZBALL and whether it's dead again, because that is the way to get views and likes and listeners in this business. It's to just pointlessly go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about BAZBALL and whether it's dead yet. So, yeah, join us again in 10 seconds or so.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we're getting to the big question. Is BAZBALL dead? Did India kill BAZBALL? Was it dead already because Australia killed it? Did England kill BAZBALL themselves by going too far up their own arses? Who knows? We know. Ross, don't we? Is BAZBALL dead?
No, it's alive, mate. It's alive.
Can you talk about the arse theory for me?
I don't think so, because we might get taken off air. I reckon we'd have to go live on a different platform. I think it would be. But when it comes to BAZBALL, we have to remember it's England doing their level best to take give their players the most opportune way of kind of feeling comfortable. Remove the fear of failure. No matter how bad you do, you're still going to get backed by the lads, because it's actually, you're playing cricket and you just want to have a bit of a laugh. And I think that England have used it to try and balance their team against kind of better teams. Like Australia, better cricketing team last year in the Ashes. They probably should have won it. You look at India are always going to be better than England, and England using it to be like, we need to play to our strengths. And in some cases, our strengths are be aggressive. Zach Crawley hits runs early on, Ben Duckett hits runs early on, and we've got the best opening partnership since Strauss and Cook. Like, that's a success off the back of it. But unfortunately, you can't always do this stuff when you're playing against a better team, and it's always going to work out. We obviously have Dan Weston on the show an awful lot, and he talks about how that worse teams need to kind of increase like the kind of variance in a game, and BAZBALL tries to do that. And in some cases, it almost has worked. As we said earlier, there was a number of chances for England to win the Test matches, and then the normal England comes in and we collapse, and it all goes wrong. So I don't think it's dead. I don't think Brendan McCullum's going to lose his job. I don't think Ben Stokes is going to lose his job as captain. I don't think there's going to be major shock retirement. I don't think Jimmy Anderson will retire kind of immediately. I think he'll probably play this summer. So yeah, I think the state of mind of BAZBALL is still going to be there, and it'll still be exciting to watch through it. But other teams are quite good, and when they get on the receiving end of someone like Jaiswal, like they have in this series, it's going to be a challenge for them.
So, Max, we had a couple of comments that are coming in the chat. Raja says it is extraordinary that England haven't won a series in 15 months if you ignore the one-off test v Ireland. and Abaram. And there's a couple of other people that have asked a similar question. Ivan asked a similar question too. Basically asking, should we be reevaluating Root's captaincy in 2021 based on England's performance over this series? So with those two things in mind, what is your response?
I think it's a valid one to point out, like England not winning a series in the last 15 months, because it's a results game, and everyone's been talking about how great baseball's been and how it's revolutionised the way England have played cricket, and they've come up against Australia at home and India away, and they haven't won those series, and you can ask a question, but also they're playing the two best sides in the world in two of those series, one of them in their own backyard. I mean, that's a write-off. They're never going to win that. Australia, that was an incredible series of cricket. Bar some rain, England probably win that. Let's be honest. And so we'll take the moral ashes there anyway. So that's one series done. The moral ashes that was nice and wrapped up. But you just have to compare it to what came before, don't you? Which I guess comes into the kind of Root captaincy era. And I don't think we need to look at Root's captaincy in the 21 series, because that series was bizarre. it was not if I were running some statistical analysis on that series, I'd be probably forgetting about it as an outlier, because it was weird, and I don't think Root's captaincy would have made a blind bit of difference in England's chances in that series. But I mean, coming back to the BAZBALL point, I didn't actually see a whole lot of BAZBALL at times in this series. Like there were some occasions where perhaps England were overly aggressive and it cost them some wickets, but there are also just as many, I think, occasions where England kind of got into their shell and got a bit stuck and then collapsed. That's probably as much down to the brilliance of India and the fact that England, with the ability and the skills they've got, weren't able to put pressure on India, and therefore it didn't work. The mindset didn't work because they were coming up against something that was just too good for them. And it's all been overblown, I think, too much, as if it's very black and white, isn't it? A lot of people like to go into very certainties and things like that, and I think that's the line that a lot of people have ended up going down. But when you dig into it a bit more, it's the same point that we've been making. India have just been phenomenal, and England have tried their best on occasions. The positive approach has worked. Ollie Pope doesn't score 196 in Hyderabad without the mindset that it's totally fine to do a dill scoop over your own head or reverse sweep absolutely.
But where else are you going to do a dill scoop?
All right.
Yeah.
That's definitely the point that we need to pick up on there. Yeah. So it's just I think a bit churlish to try. We're like, yeah, look, England lost. They didn't beat Australia. They didn't beat India. BAZBALL doesn't work anymore. Like it's still only a couple of years that England have been doing this, and they did beat the other teams they played against. They went overseas to Pakistan and won there, and that's not an easy thing to do, especially on some of the pitches that just make it very difficult to win a game of cricket against literally anyone. They played brilliantly against Australia, apart from the early parts. There was, South Africa was a bit, touch and go, but there were some interesting pitches there that kind of played into both bowling attacks' hands. And I think if you take a step back, ultimately England are so much better than they were before Stokes and McCullum took over. That maybe the series as a whole, the results haven't gone the way England would have wanted them to in the last year, but the cricket has still been a whole lot better than what we were being served up beforehand. So I'm firmly in keep calm and baz on.
Fair enough. I think that's basically right. If you want an illustration of like sort of why it hasn't worked for England, Kuldeep Yadav on the first day of this match, and people have been saying this has been a really good batting deck and that England should have cashed in and scored more runs. Do you remember when Kuldeep bowled Zach Crawley, that ball that absolutely ragged back through the gate, hit the top of the leg stump? That was the ball that ball spanned the second most of any ball in the last 10 years in all international cricket.
Amazing.
according to apparently this is true. According to Hawkeye, Matt Parkinson bowled a ball that span a little bit more once, and that's it. Like that's the level of talent that England are up against here. Like that, they've got players, Kuldeep Yadav, who isn't even the best spinner in the India team. They've got this other guy with 500 wickets. Kuldeep Yadav bowls a ball that does something that's like basically off the charts on day one when it shouldn't be doing that on a pitch that everyone is saying is a good batting deck. So like when it doesn't work, it's not necessarily that England are dumb. I mean, someone in the chat said, "Do England not want to get centuries?" It's like it's quite hard to get centuries against that. Like even if you're really good, and Zach Crawley is really good. Like Zach Crawley has been really good for years. It's mad that we're saying this in a sense because we know what happened before. But Zach Crawley's been averaging 50 opening the batting. He's like smashing around good bowling attacks. He's got lots of runs in this series. It's only because he hasn't got 100 that people aren't really waxing lyrical about him. He's been really, really good. He's well set in his 70s, and someone bowls like an absolute miracle ball. Yeah, that's sort of the difference. I mean, like baseball, I think what like annoys people about baseball is the self-aggrandizing.
Yeah.
The fact that they'll go and do an interview after things
Perceived arrogance,
patently gone wrong, and be like, it's all going really well, just like we planned it. But they're not talking to you. They're talking this like their media stuff is all media stuff for their own ears. They don't care what you think about them. It's an exercise effectively in like how Jose Mourinho conducts press conferences. Like there's no content there for fans. It's all stuff for either Jose Mourinho to consume later or for Jose Mourinho's players to consume later. And
do you reckon they've got an internal newsletter? Do you reckon they've got one? Take different turns in writing the team's newsletter. It's just like bloody hell. What was it? Ashwin was a bit good today, wasn't he? But I tell you what, Ollie, your hair looks great.
Yeah, no, I mean, like it is that kind of thing. And also, like Max, as you say, I think we'll probably wrap up on baseball after this because it gets a bit boring talking about it, to be honest, over and over and over again. Effectively, what baseball is, in as much as they have played it, and that's debatable in this series. Like, I think you could make the argument that they haven't really, and that India have restricted them and restricted the opportunities they've had to really make hay by bowling really well. What it is, though, is it's effectively a choice to be slightly more aggressive than you would be in Test cricket normally. If you boil it down to like what the actual essence of it is, take away all of the stuff they say in the press, take away, what it actually looks like, the shots they play and stuff. It's basically being like, we're going to defend a few less balls, and we're going to attack some balls that are on a good length, and we're going to try and score about a run, 2 runs quicker than traditionally has happened in Test cricket. And people hate it outside of England, I think, partly because of the media, but also because people just generally hate change. And people doing a thing that they're not supposed to do scares people. Like it's scary sometimes that we were talking about it with Sil Berry, weren't we? Like the guy has watched 1,000 Test matches, and BAZBALL comes along, and BAZBALL is a threat to the whole legacy
Everything
of Sil Berry. Yeah, everything he's ever done. Because what it is it's a way of playing cricket that is more entertaining than the way that cricket used to be played. And so if you've watched 1,000 Test matches, 1,000 boring matches where people scored at 2.5 runs and over, then somebody comes along and scores at 5 and over, and they're hitting sixes and everyone's cheering. You kind of need it to fail for your own life story to be worth it. Otherwise, what you've done is watched thousands and thousands of hours that you could have been doing something more productive. Or when you could have been doing something more productive, watching a thing that isn't as good as it could have been. So, I think there's an element of fear there. Ross, any final words from you?
No, just to remember that we're in the entertainment business, not in the results business. And I think we're going to live and die by that sword. Is how McCullum and Stokes will see what they're doing. So, yeah, we're here for the ride.
Like genuinely, this has been said a few times on this podcast, but like just to reiterate one more time, 4-1 for England here, and they've been competitive is a really good result. Like they have quite significantly exceeded the expectations, I think, of most people who are, somewhat in the know. It's only people who think that cricket is always played in neutral conditions that thought England had a real chance of winning a series here. Like most people who have done even the most basic research into how India have performed for the last decade, most basic research into who Ashwin is, would know that England weren't going to win this series. The fact that they actually nearly won more than one match is, they've done well. And the fact that they did that with like literally just random blokes picked to bowl for them. Should we take a break and then we'll go back, revisit the predictions? Does that sound good? Any messages before we take the break, Ross?
No, just remember, we are pretty sarcastic on this show, so the live chat that's not picking that up, we love you.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. Ross, I hadn't actually noticed the chat, but I did see it was like going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. That'll be fun to read back through later. I think. Should we get to some predictions? Max, can we remind you?
I wasn't on the prediction show as well. This is going to be brilliant for me.
I'll remind people.
You know the classic tale of how Moeen Ali got better and better for England every series that he didn't play. I think this is going to happen with Ross here in terms of predictions. Mystic Leg is going to come to the fore.
So before the series started, we predicted who'd score the most runs, who'd take the most wickets, who the player of the series would be, who the flop of the series would be, and what the score would be. Dan, myself, and Max were on the panel for that episode. Ross managed to dodge it somehow. So
I thought it was going to be 4-1 to India, if I'm perfectly honest, and I thought Jaiswal was going to hit all the runs.
Did you? Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Look. So we're gonna go back through that and see how we got on. Just quickly, this is what Max predicted. Max, who's going to be the top run scorer that now in the upcoming series, and why?
Right, well, should we take the low-hanging fruit? I'm going to go for Virat Kohli. So I guess I'll go with Akshar Patel because he's done it before. Why not?
Time for player of the series, Max.
I'm going to go Ravi Jadeja.
Max, your call on flop of the series.
For me, I think it's going to be history repeating itself. And the phantom of Ravi Ashwin is once again going to be all over poor old Ollie Pope.
Now we get to the juicy bit. What's the score going to be?
Score. Yeah. Well, 5-0.
Max, who's going to be the top run scorer? There you go. That's not too bad, actually, in hindsight. When we first put that together, that was just after Ollie Pope had demolished India. Max, are you happy with your selections there? I haven't done this.
I'm going to say, in the fullness of time, they've got less bad. They've aged like a
they have aged well.
Not a fine wine, but they turned from like wine liquor that's not ready to drink into a table wine.
Liquor.
Yeah, that's the
table
first
wine.
bit. That's what you get, the first bit before you start bottling it and racking it.
Cool. Well, we'll go back to who got the most runs.
Yeah.
I've got our 3 predictions down here, Max. Obviously, you went with Virat Kohli, so you get 0 points for this. Dan Wester went for King Legend.
I mean, that's worse than Virat Kohli.
I think that's. Can we give Dan a 0 there? I think Ross, you might have to make the judgment call. As
who did you choose, Jack?
I chose Rohit Sharma.
Well, Rohit ended up with what 1 century in this series. Like
Rohit scored 400 odd runs. He did all right.
Yeah, Jack, I think that's your category, and I think Max and Dan with 0. I think on that front.
Cool. So, how many points do you award to me for that?
Say 5 was the most. Like Rohit's pretty good. 3 points for you there, Jack. I reckon.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a good start. Then we went to bowlers. Max, you went for Akshar Patel.
Yeah, I mean, we should remember, for those who weren't there for the previous shows, we did do this in a snake draft. So I went first.
It's an important fact.
It meant I went last on the bowlers, and funnily enough, Ashwin and Jadeja had already gone. I could have gone for Kuldeep, of course, but I went for Akshar Patel.
Who was, let's be fair, based upon 2021, was England's destroyer, wasn't he? So not a bad prediction, Max, but unfortunately didn't really play.
No.
Dan went for Ashwin. I went for Jadeja. I think they were the calls. So not bad from Dan. He actually gets it correct. 26 wickets for Ashwin, just overtaking Tom Hartley.
Who could see that coming?
Who would have been a wild card selection. Jasprit Bumrah picks up 19 wickets. Kuldeep Yadav 19 wickets. Jadeja also 19 wickets. Ross, how many points do people get?
I think Dan takes the full 5. You can take a 4 on that one, and Max.
4? You having a laugh?
Let's be fair. He's in the top 5. He's in the top 5. That's pretty good. All right.
Yeah, nice.
And Max 0.
Yeah, fine.
So, okay, I'm doing pretty well. I'm happy with this. Player of the series. Max, you went for Jadeja. Not a bad selection, I would say. Dan went for Virat Kohli. Did the predictions one day before Virat Kohli was ruled out for the entire series. And I went for Ashwin. That's quite tough to decide, Ross. I mean, like maybe arguably we've not got the actual player of the series in there. But what are your thoughts?
So Kohli obviously is 0. So Dan with 0.50.
Yeah.
That's quite good. Max, I thought Jadeja was pretty good in the series, but Ashwin was slightly better. So I think it's probably 3 points for Max. Jack, I think you take 4, and then obviously Jaiswal is the player of the series.
5. Jaiswal's beating me.
Yeah, Jaiswal.
Yeah. Jadeja did have a really good series. I mean, obviously he missed a test, but he averaged 38 with the bat, picked up 19 wickets. Same.
Yeah, I think just if you take the most, like Ashwin is like he's negated some of England's biggest threats, right? He's got a couple of bunnies in that team, and he's pretty spectacular.
Yes. Next category was the flop of the series, and this is where the wheels came off for me, I think. I went for Zach Crawley.
Dear. Is that minus points?
I'll just take a 0.
I think that might be a minus points.
England turned out to be England's best batter. Dan went for Stokes, which is a pretty good selection. And Max, you went for Ollie Pope, who on the one hand was a flop, but on the other hand did single-handedly win a test match. So score that, Ross.
So we said in the when he did hit the 196, wherever it was, we said that if he hits no more runs in this series, which he pretty much did, he'd actually have a good series, and that was after the first test match. So I think, or second test match, I think
First one.
Yeah, I think Pope gets 2 points. I think Max
2 points.
Yeah, 2 points.
Okay.
I think that's probably fair. Like he was good, but also a complete passenger in a lot of other stuff. He was okay in the field, like decent short leg, isn't he? Jack, you're definitely a 0. You're definitely a 0. I mean, you're very close to minus points there.
He was England's top run scorer, 407 runs, average 40.
Played absolutely brilliantly against. Yeah, was he? He's only got out to Bumrah once, I think. Was it in the end? Which is pretty good going. And then Dan 5 points. Stokes, I think, is the biggest flop of the series.
Okay, so does anyone remember what the scores were here? I think Dan's got
10.
I'm on 11, I believe.
I think I'm on 5.
Okay, so it's all to play for. It's all to play for going into the scores. As we actually picked 2 scores each here. Not that it really matters. Max, you went for 5-0 and a 3-1 England win. So we had to do
your bets.
yeah, 5-0 India and not 5-0 England win. Yeah.
I was about to say, like, what were you smoking?
Dan went for a 4-0 India win and a 3-0 India win. I went for 4-1 India and for 3-2 India. I'm not saying I've
Jack, you've won that one.
but
Yeah, you've won that one. Yeah, you've won that. That's unfortunate, Max. They're not as bad, right? They're not as bad as when you first played that clip after this first test match. But yeah, Max, you come out with a little bit of face saved, I think.
Thank you.
So I've won the whole thing now.
Yeah, but I would like to say
king of predictions.
But throughout this test series, the daily shows I think have been absolutely fantastic. So a commendable effort to both of you, because I think actually the way in which we've seen the test matches and commentated on it in terms of what was going to happen next, this has been a pretty good series for the Cricket Podcast. So well done, Max, and well done, Jack.
Oh, thank you to everyone who has listened as well. We'll be getting on with our IPL shows soon. if you've not hung around with the cricket podcast before, we do a team preview for every team, which is
in depth.
well,
We are the
yeah.
we are the best podcast at covering the IPL, and I think that is genuinely fair. That is genuinely fair.
Easy. And then there'll be a load of shows during the tournament as well. We normally do a regular schedule with like Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday or something like that. As the show times, covering all the matches. So that's going to be good. Is there anything we haven't hit for this series that we need to finish off on? Ross, any final thoughts?
I think it is just that part of India were fantastic, and there is no disgrace in losing to India in that space. I'm coming full circle back to the top of the show. There's no chat about the pitches being rubbish and all this kind of stuff, and India cheated to win, all this kind of stuff. All the typical narratives, kind of some of the English media kind of play out. Ultimately, England were not as good. England turned up with Bashir, who'd played 7 first-class games in his life. Hartley, who's played cricket for about 2 years as well, and they were their main spinners up against Ashwin, Kuldeep, Jadeja. And actually, do you know what? The spinners did okay. Like for that inexperience, actually, they go away with their kind of head held high in that space, but they were never going to be the threat that they needed to be. Jack Leach, but missing out, I don't think makes much difference in the series. If I'm perfectly honest, the level between Jack Leach as our best spinner or England's best spinner and Jadeja, Ashwin, Kuldeep is still relatively significant. And then batting wise, Sarfaraz Khan, for example, came into this team. Even Padigal hit a half century in this test match. The people that India have kind of on the bench or in the waiting in the wings has been pretty impressive to look at. And getting to watch Jaiswal and Gill bat in this test series has been a treat on most of the occasion.
Max, anything final from you?
It's just what I said. Really, really good series, competitive mostly, good cricket. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and now looking forward to something completely different.
I'm just looking back through the chat. There's lots of people who want us to say that India killed BAZBALL, and it would be a lie if we said it. So
I'm looking forward to seeing all the memes on Twitter of someone posing over a grave that says "Here lies BAZBALL, 2021 to 2024, whatever."
The one with the guy who looks a bit like Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
That is, but it won't be true. I mean, like basically, what's happened here is that India are better at cricket and England, and they lost because of that. Yeah. Sorry that the narrative isn't more entertaining. It would be kind of funny if, like, BAZBALL did just end. Like, if mid-series England were just like, this was a terrible mistake,
like Graham Swan retiring in Australia.
Yeah. But like, it's just obviously not what's going to happen. They've decided they're going to do this. It'll probably work quite well if you actually take a zoomed-out view of world cricket. England, talent-wise, are probably the third best test team, and if you look at their results, they're beating most of the teams below them. They're quite competitive at home against Australia and India. They're pretty bad away against Australia and India, and that's their lot in life, isn't it? They're third best. Why not hit a few sixes along the way? I guess. Yeah,
sell those tickets.
Accept your place. Sell some tickets. Chat some nonsense. Like,
play some golf.
Give Ollie Robinson his own TV show.
Play some golf. Yeah. Oh fuck, man! I watched the whole one of those Ollie Robinson videos the other day.
He's still recovering.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Do you remember Bam Margera? They used to have Viva the Bam.
Yes.
That is literally like if there was a TV show about Ollie Robinson's life, that is what they should do. Him living down in Sussex in Hove probably, and just following the life of him. It'd be like the Kardashians, but much better.
Much more boring. I mean, like, I can't believe how boring he is. You'd think, like, he's got a reputation for being a bit of an oddball, and you'd think, like, so when I started tuning into this, I was like, well, we're going to get some good oddball stuff here. Like, this is gonna be weird in all the right ways, and it isn't. It's just an hour of absolute mundanity.
And then we had some pizza, and then I went out into the hallway to see the guys, and then I dyed my hair. Brilliant.
It's
Thanks,
literally
Ollie.
that. It's literally that for an hour, and there's 5 episodes. So I don't know. Check it out. No cricket, is there? Like, it's right. We're gonna wrap up at the Cricket Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Patreon.com/The Cricket Pod if you want to support us directly. Thank you to everyone who does. And that's about it, isn't it? Well played, India. Thoroughly deserved 4-1 series win. Bring on the IPL.